Suit up, strap in, warm the tires, and leave on yellow. Time for the MitsuTimes podcast, presented by MitsuTimes.org, the home of the fastest Mitsubishi cars. With your host, Josh.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Josh with MitsuTimes. Our guest today is Joe Womack, owner of the 6G75 all-wheel drive swap 3G, one of the baddest machines that I've ever seen, and I can't wait to see it in person here in the next couple months. Joe, what's going on, man? How are you doing?
Pretty good. Enjoying this Missouri weather.
It's nice today, man. You know, we're probably at the same temperature right now, so it's a good day to be out.
The cold weather behind us.
Yeah, exactly. No more fake summers. All right, a lot of people listening either, I would say probably half know about your car, half don't know about your car. Tell us about your car as it sits right now.
So it's a 3G body. So I bought the 3G. Right now, so a few colors. It's black and blue. Trying to get, it looking right as well as it, running right. But it's a 3.9 V6 out of a 4G all-wheel drive swap. Recently got the Voltcraft metals rear subframe in there. Evo transmission. I had hand cut out a belt housing, a plate for the all-wheel drive. Evo front end axles and knuckles. GSX full rear, custom two-piece drive shaft. Ran pretty much all by AEM standalone. It's got an AEM digital dash. Making 617 all-wheel horsepower on E85. Got a radium fuel cell in the back. Got 3 450 pumps, so it's definitely pushing, and it could be pushing a lot more. It's making, the 617 horsepower on 18 pounds. So once I turn that up.
That's just low boost then. A lot of people are probably thinking, why would this guy do all this work to a 3G?
I chose the 3G back in the day. I bought the car about 2014. It's actually my second 3G. I had a Spider when I lived down in California for a little bit, and I moved up to Washington and sold it, and kind of just was like, hey, I want another 3G, and we bought this coupe. My best friend in high school had one. It was around the time when they were cool, and he would be fixing it up. I think he did a carbon fiber hood on there, all speakers and stuff. We just used to roll around in that. And I bought my car, and I accidentally built it. I wouldn't say that this was the plan from the start. I didn't know anything about cars. Originally when I bought the car, I was afraid to take off the valve cover, change the spark plugs. I really didn't know anything about the car. So maybe if I would have known a little bit more, got a little bit more into the Fast and Furious, it probably would have been a 2G. But I bought the car really just because, my buddy had it. I didn't know anything about front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, or all-wheel drive. Big boost or, big engines. And then over time, since then, it's slowly become what it is today. So, and that's what I tell people all the time. It doesn't happen overnight. We chip away at it.
Just one part at a time.
Oh, yeah. And research. The biggest thing is research. Everybody wants to go on there and Google, do these parts fit? And it's sometimes you can't just do that. You got to order the part, look at the part, try to make it fit, or if it fits, then shoot, you lucked out.
What was the car like when you bought it? Just a standard GT, manual trans?
Yep. So the car, the day I bought it, it had tan interior. It was I think it had about 256,000 miles on it, 5-speed, 3.0 stock. It was from an older guy. I Carfaxed it a few years ago, and I'm the seventh and final owner of that car. So it's been passed around a few times since its early days of 2000.
It's a GT, right? Not a GTS?
Yeah, so it's a GT. So GTS really didn't come out until about 2003 is when they started calling things GTS.
Okay.
But the GT, so it had the original. It's an early model GT, 2000 GT too.
So what different setups have you had in it now besides the 6G75 and the all-wheel drive setup?
Motors-wise, that's the second motor that was in there. The original motor I was trying to blow up, going to IFO and all these tracks up in Washington, and it had the 3.0 in there. And then I just, was doing research, and originally I wasn't going to boost the car. I just wanted to do the 6G75 Myvic swap because Matt came out with the plate. That's what I was more interested in. And then I bought the motor. It was a bad motor. I had 6 vent valves in it. I was like, you know what? I'll just send it over to Brandon McCauley's shop. We'll just redo the heads and call it a day. Well, that turned into ordering pistons and finding rods that fit, bore in it, and the whole motor been worked on. And luckily, Ike over there at Auburn Auto, he helped me out, didn't charge me a lot for really any of the machining work. I think I just paid for the head work. So shout out to them. If you're in Washington State, definitely hit up them. Other than because I guess they had messed with the timing at the shop, because it was a wrecked car, but it was a rear end car. I'm guessing whoever was checking the motor, decided to do something, and then at the shop, and then they started it. And so, because it wasn't bad, there was no marks on the pistons tops. It was just a little scuffed, but other than that, it was just 6-pin valves. Because I was doing the timing and doing the maintenance for it, and nothing was lining up, and I was just, Brandon, come look at this, and that's when we found that 6-pin valves were messed up and 6 guides were broke.
Talk us through the 67.5 swap and the all-wheel drive swap. How much custom fab work was needed in order to get that engine in there and that drivetrain in there?
So the 67.5 and really all the 6G motors are practically a drop-in motor. You just got to use the original 3.0 motor mount on the passenger side. Because, of course, if you're using the stock drivetrain from the 3G, the 3 motor mounts that are on the driver's side all connect to the transmission. So all you're really doing is bolting it up, putting the 3.0 passenger side motor mount on there, and then setting it in there. The hardest thing I would say about the Mavic swap is making sure you get an adapter plate. There are ways around not using an adapter plate, but it just makes it a little bit harder and a little bit sillier looking. And you take the water neck and you kind of got to weld around it so you can put the distributor on the front head. And that's what they did back in the day. I would say the Mavic swap was probably the easiest part because it just dropped in. Getting fuel rails made. Right now it's got 6G74 fuel rails because the original 6G75 are returnless fuel rails. The wiring up the Mavic's pretty easy. Everybody back in the day was scared of the solenoids, and they needed, to make sure that it was 100% correct. But nowadays, we use a RPM window switch that people use in NOS all the time. So, once it hits to a certain RPM, it comes on or closes. Most people think that you need the ECU from the 4G. You don't. You use the stock 3G wiring harness, ECU, distributor with the distributor plate, and then you can swap over to so I had the Evo S90 throttle body. So, but if you don't want to go that big, then you can just use a 6G704 throttle body with their sensors on there. So you just wire it up. And there's plenty of forums on Club 3G that kind of show you how to wire these things up. If not, you just look at a diagram. Look at it long enough, you'll know what you're looking at.
A lot of the 67.5 Mirage swap guys are actually using 3.0 ECUs. There are more of them.
Yeah. So, and that's another thing. The 3.0 and the 2G guys, they'll use the black box too if they get away from what they do. So it's more tunable. Everybody back in the day was like, oh, well, the ECUs aren't tunable, or the early ECUs aren't tunable. There's very few of them that are actually still not tunable, but like originally you had to get through it a little bit. So you have to have like the definitions and everything else like that. But once you have all that, you could get in there and tune it by the original swap. So I had boarded out, and then the compression's about a 9-to-1. And it's still on the dyno, tuning it. And everybody's like, oh, well, this shop won't tune it. This, because they don't want to learn the new software. It's not like the 4Gs with the CAN bus. If they know how to tune Evos, yeah, learning the motor is going to be a little bit different, but you're using the same programs as an Evo with the ECU flash and the Evo scan. So you're logging it with Evo scan, and, you're flashing it with Evo ECU flash. Don't be scared to, like I tell people, don't be scared to learn. I put my car to the test. But besides the AEM swap, the full standalone swap, getting it started was hard. So I definitely had to pay somebody to really get a bass tune going, because that probably would have took me years just to figure it out. But now, yeah, it's running. It's got West Coast forged pistons in there. It's got spool import rods. It's got ARP 4-bolt mains, stock head with port and polished, 2 JZ exhaust studs. They fit right in, so I got 2 JZ exhaust studs, titanium. The valve seals, they're 2 JZ. You got to look and figure out, because, I'm sure the 2 JZ guys, they don't know that they fit because they're not looking at it.
So what about the all-wheel drive swap? That a 2G DSM rear subframe?
The rear subframe, originally, yeah, the rear subframe is just strictly GSX. Back drop bolts, they line up. The front drop bolts, there's a hole already there where the bolts will go in. You just got to cut out from the top and drop, a bolt in. Of course, cut the other one forward bolts off. But other than that, yeah, you just drop the bolts in there, bolts right up. There's no spacers or anything like that needs to be put in there. No drilling for the holes, and it fits just like it would. Now, I did go with a fuel cell, so most people have, if they want a stock location tank, you could do a GSX tank. You just have to cut out the top or drop the tank every time you want to change out. But yeah, you just cut out the holes really where it's at under the seat back there. There's a variety of different drive shafts you can use, but I opted in for I think it's a 4-inch 2-piece aluminum drive shaft from Drive Shaft Shop, custom made. It's a Evo 6 transfer case. I went with the Evo 6 not because it's the strongest. The Evo 8 is actually the strongest one. At the time, I didn't have the shop that I had now. I just wanted to go under. So the Evo 6 drive snout actually goes under the subframe. So it's easier to clear. You don't have to cut into the body too much and move anything. Just the front subframe. Evo front knuckles. Of course, with the knuckles, you need the Evo wheel bearings, Evo axles, the transmission. So the GT and the Evo transmission are pretty much 95% identical as far as where the motor mounts are, the look of them, the inside, how they function. The only difference is about 2 inches where the bell housing meets the motor. And of course, a spot where you can bolt into a transfer case. But other than that, they're pretty much identical. They look exactly the same from one side. The motor mounts are the same. You can actually use the bushings for the shifter links. They're the same. And then you would, of course, need an adapter plate. If you're going 5-speed, you're going to need the adapter plate. Now, if you want to talk to Alex about auto swap, that's a little easier. You don't need the adapter plate. Then you bolt up the adapter plate. You can use whatever clutch that you want. Right now, I'm running a twin disc Clutch Masters. It's really an Evo clutch, just recut crank holes to fit onto the V6.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's got a hydro throw-out bearing, so no more fork problems, no more master cylinder, nothing like that. So
that's awesome. So why did you choose to go all-wheel drive in 67.5?
Traction. You can't viably put 600 horsepower through front-wheel drive. And if I was going to, it would have cost probably about the same, because they don't really make. I'd have to get custom axles made and custom front, 3.0 transmission built. And, my transmission, my original transmission had an LSD in it, and it put down, good power. The original motor, if I take all the boost off and everything else like that, the original motor made 225 horsepower, 225 torque, and it was still just lighting the tires up with an LSD. So I just needed the traction, and it was a challenge. My car actually sat at one shop, and this is why it took so long. So my car actually in Virginia, I dropped it off at one shop. He was going to build all the turbo stuff for me, and it sat for about 6 months without being touched. I get a text from him saying, hey, my partner that owns the shop with me, he's kind of just, left, and I got to get rid of the shop. I'm not going to be able to get to this. And so I had to go pick up the car and find another shop. And that took about 3 months because I was already looking into the all-wheel drive stuff, and it was going to be a later project. And then I got the car back, and within those 3 months, I had the subframe and the transmission in and, waiting on the drive shaft. Got the drive shaft, put it on, and my car went to another shop. Yeah, it sat at the other shop for a while because they had other projects that they were working on. And I got my turbo system built the way I wanted it. It's not the greatest. They were an up-and-coming shop, but they were cool. They knocked it out as equal length as possible because most people go, from one bank to the other and then to a turbo, and they put it in an awkward position. I want, custom manifolds, just like all the V8 guys go, custom manifolds into a twin scroll. I was adamant about making sure it was a twin scroll 6766 sitting there. Got built at Limitless Performance in Virginia. Picked it up, cleaned up the car, put everything together. Actually had one show that I took it to. It wasn't running yet because all the wiring wasn't done. So I got the car back. I still need to coat a lot of the piping and stuff. Tore it down, cleaned it all up, put the rear end back into it, put the drive shaft into it, make sure everything was good to go. And then I found a tuning shop because, like I said, the AEM was done. The car never ran on a stock ECU after the Myvic swap, and I moved to Virginia. Dropped it off over at MDR, and they used to do a turbo kit a long time ago for the 3G, so they're kind of familiar with it. Tav recommended me to them, and they were pretty good. So Greaser over there, he knew what he was doing. He put it on a dyno, and I have flex fuel now, and so I can run 93 or E85. Yes, it's got the flex fuel sensor, so I don't have to drain the tank and put the other stuff in, download a retune. No, it's strictly, EcoBoost. And then, he got it, put on the dyno, and made 617 horsepower. It makes 556, I believe, on premium. So E85 is definitely where the power comes from.
So if you could start this build all over again, is there anything that you would do different?
I wouldn't do it. This car's been a labor of love. There's been plenty of times where I've wanted to quit, but at the same time, I don't. If I knew better back then, I'd probably go with an Evo, to be honest. Just not really the money itself, because I probably got about what an Evo would cost you, a stock-ish Evo would cost you.
Yeah.
And a lot more than, most Evos. Yeah, it's just been if I did this, I might as well do that. If I do this, might as well do that. Since having the car, I've moved from an apartment into living with people, into living with more people in Virginia, to buying a house that had a decent garage, to now this house that has a pretty decent garage. So it's definitely been the constant thing in my life I could just, work on.
Yeah.
But really, you see these people out here and all they're doing is dedicating their time to making the car, I guess, fast and not necessarily paying attention to the quality of work. My OCD cannot let me do that. Like, if I do something, it's either going to be done right or redone over and over again until it's right. So I probably went through a couple $100 more than I should have with the AEM swap because of the wire that I got, good wire. The connections that I got are good connections. I would do it, and then I wouldn't like it the way it's done, and then I would redo it. So, and then I still want to redo it now because it's not 100% the way I want it. So probably would not pick this platform if I had to start over. But at the same time, the body of the car is literally the only thing left.
Yeah.
For the 3G that I originally had, the parts are very slim to none. Like the original when I bought it, the front subframe, that's pretty much it. And I'm hopefully one day going to be swapping to a 2 front subframe.
Yeah.
The dash is out of another car because, of course,
3G
our
dashes, yeah,
are fragile. It doesn't have the same seats, doesn't have the same carpet because the carpet was tan. The front bumper now is different. So the hood, so pretty much the hood and the body are really the only thing left.
So what is it that motivates you to keep going with this car?
I want to see what it can do. And, a long time ago when Justin was more vocal in the groups, he's back now. And, I kind of somewhat understanding how he was back then because he was an OG to, the 3G platform, and I was just a newcomer saying I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. He's already done things, and now I see where he's coming from, and I have a lot of respect for him now, and his car is going to be phenomenal this year. Even though, and this is just, even though I think it's going to be more pro mod, closer to pro mod than actual stock 3G, he's got a handful of stuff that he's done so far to the car. But he told me back in the day that I wasn't going to do anything. And, for the longest time, I believed him. I was like, maybe I just make sure the car looks good and drives good. That's when I was like, oh, just Mavic swap it and be happy. But he still holds the top spot after a long time. Over the years, there's been people that came in and just keep motivating me more and more to want to get to the 10s or even 9s. Like, I have a lot of support from the 3G community, and I try to help out. But a lot of times, I think me trying to help out, I get a little arrogant because I'm just like, no, that won't work. And then they get all flustered like I used to, I'm just be like, well, okay, cool. Well, that's never going to work. So you either take advice from me that has done it or has seen it done or not done that way, because somebody comes in and says, I'm going to make a Fast and Furious car. And, it's like, hey, just be original. Like, the 2Gs already have a Fast and Furious trend going. I hated the 3G in the movies.
Yeah, I hate both of them, the 2G and the 3G.
The 2G was decent. I mean, if you don't know cars, then cool. It was like the coolest thing ever. But if you know cars, then it wasn't a GSX and it was just a 420A and whatever. But the 3G, I don't know. It irked me. I hate chrome wheels, and it looked lifted. It was not a good representation of.
I don't know what they were thinking.
It was the times. Just like I see some people's cars that were built back in the day, and it was the times, the body.
I definitely think the Fast and Furious themed cars, it's to us now, it's like flames on cars to the older generation. Like,
oh yeah,
well, we've seen it, we're tired of it, move on.
Yep, and you don't see flames on cars anymore.
Yeah,
and I don't understand why people would purposely be like, oh, I'm going to build this car, and it's like, look, like, one, a lot of those cars were thrown together. 2, you probably won't find those parts. So now you're trying to find parts that'll fit. It'll look different, but it would be... I like a stock body with maybe a lip kit. Keep it stock. Keep it clean. Don't go too extreme.
Yeah. Why would you build something that someone's already built?
Exactly. And that's, kind of been my motivation too, is like, yeah, people in Mavic swapped the car. Yeah, people have all-wheel drive swapped the car. But not many have all-wheel drive swapped a V6 5-speed and then put on the fuel cell in the back that costs 3 times more than what I paid for the car. Then the standalone ECU with the digital dash. So my car is one of a kind, but things on it have been done.
Yeah.
Like I tell people, like, I'm not the first person to do this. I'm just kind of the first person that kind of just thrown everything together. Because I'm not the first person to run a standalone.
I think you're the first person to put it out there as much as you have. I feel like you do such a good job of, hey, look at this. Yes, 6G75. Yes, all-wheel drive. But when you show the pictures that you post, I think it's the details that really set it apart from other cars. I would say especially on a 3G list. But, 3Gs that I've seen in person, or even any car that I've seen in person, it's the details and the craftsmanship. You had everything done exactly how you wanted to do it, and it really shows this car was built with some passion behind it.
Oh, yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like, when you see it in person, I'm sure, I could point out 100,000 flaws in the car. I could also say, and Brandon's car, I love Brandon to death, right? Me and him are practically best friends, brothers, and, our cars, when I got my car in Washington, his car had already been Evo swapped, and he was working on it. He went all-wheel drive swap first. His car is a work of art, but I would be scared to drive something like that because of the time and just everything. So his car is a show car. It's, you put it in a show and people are going to go, ooh, wow. My car, I like it having, the rough edges. It's not 100% perfect body. It's got dents and it's, dirty. But at the same time, like, I'm not scared to drive it like I want it and, take it to the track and get down and dirty with it. So I think that's where my car and, other people's cars that are built for show are a little bit different. But I like sharing what I do because I don't want to be the only one. I'm not the arrogant one where it's like, oh, well, I did this, but I'm not going to, you figure it out. Like, no, I really wish I had people that was like, hey, and I have. I've had help doing bits and pieces, but, not a lot of people could tell me exactly how it's done. And sometimes it's a blessing and a curse because I get messages all the time and they want me to explain every little detail to them. And I'm like, look, like, there are plenty of forums on there. Go and, research it and understand it, because I cannot explain it 100 times if you're not understanding it. That's going to get me flustered, because you're not the only one in my DMs asking me these questions.
Yeah.
So I'm explaining it over and over again. And it's like, look, I try to put it out as much as I can. If you have specific questions, hey, I'm running into this, what did you do? Those are the type of questions that I really like. Or, like I would ask questions all the time about turbo kits when I was building it. Hey, what worked for you? Is it the equal length, or, did you just use the other manifolds and kind of just connect them? And, then over time, I just kind of figured out what I wanted, how I wanted it, and I found a shop to do it.
So what are your goals for 2022 with this car?
I just wrapped the roof. But the paint job, I really want, hopefully by the end of the season, I really want to find somebody that can paint it, because now I got the front bumper and the fenders that are black. I want to get a new hood. So I want to make it look better, body-wise. I need to start saving up so I can get, because right now it's got a stock drivetrain. So stock LSD in the rear, stock transfer case, stock transmission. Those are my weak points. Stock, axle. So I want to start building up the drivetrain so that I can launch it the way I want. I can get down to the nitty-gritty. I'm slowly trying to do a Lexan rear window. I pulled my back glass off, and just take it to the track as much as possible. I didn't get to do that in Virginia because COVID hit as soon as I was really done with the car. COVID hit, and Virginia's not the greatest state, so they kept closing everything down because they were scared. I took it to the track once, was mad because, I found out my two-step was stuck on, so I ran one slow pass, and I'm just like, okay, cool, like, I'm done. This flustered me. Tuned it to where I need it to be, and hopefully, get close to 10s.
That was going to be my next question. What is your power goals and your quarter-mile goals with this car?
So power goals, I don't really, because everybody knows, okay, cool, if you make 1,000 horsepower, it doesn't really translate into you're going to be fast on the track. So my power goals is really whatever gets me to 10s or better. Like if we really get down to it, I really want to get into the 9s. I want to be, one of the top 5 or top 2 fastest 3Gs in the world, because, most people can never be the fastest 2G in the world. Unless you are working in a shop with hundreds of guys, $100,000, revenue, are going to be able to go and be the fastest Evo or the fastest 1G or 2G. So if I could be like, hey, I can cement my name and be like, hey, he's the fastest 1G, he's the fastest 2G. Of course, we all know Red Demon. And then, he's the fastest 3G. And it's not like, oh, well, yeah, he's the fastest 3G, he runs 12s. Like, no, or 10s. Like, I want to get into the single digits, and that'd be nice.
Yeah, I think that'll definitely open up a lot of people's eyes to, well, hang on now, this platform might have some potential.
Yeah, and it's took him damn near 22 years, so. Yeah, we still don't have the support like they do, so it's like, what I'm doing is a small scale of what the big shops are doing.
Yeah.
They find a problem, they go out there, and they find, the best of the best to make parts for them, and I'm just over here, grinding away and making shit fit.
So what I'm hoping is that, somebody out there listening is thinking, okay, well, this guy thinks that he's going to be close to running 9s, then I can do it too. And if someone just bought a 3G and they're thinking, oh my gosh, look at this MitsuTimes list, like the fastest one is a 10.27. It's Justin, obviously, and he probably spent a lot of money and a lot of time, a lot of R&D to get to that point. But if you break into the 9s and you've shared as much as you have, then someone with that platform can say, okay, I could probably get into the 10s at least.
Yep.
What you're doing is really paving a way, in my opinion, and I respect you for it. I really appreciate it. I think the 3G is slept on. I've even done a lot of, 3G hating in my life. Obviously, I'm a 2G guy, so you're really changing my opinion on it.
Don't get me wrong. Not every 3G is like my car. Some people in the car community deserve some criticism. At the same time, you can't just hate a platform because, that one car. Like, you can hate that car, but don't hate the platform. Like, oh, well, the 3G doesn't have potential. Well, any car has potential if you look down it, because not everybody knew Evo parts fit. Not everybody knew you could Evo swap it. Not everybody knows, we're just taking random ass motors and throwing them in. It's not as good as the Honda guys. I really wish we were, where, you could just be like, oh, I want to swap in a V8. They make a kit for it. Or the all-wheel drive scene for the Honda guys, it kind of got big because as soon as one person did it, all of a sudden these big shops are going, okay, we can make something like that. And they started selling kits. With the 3G, it's like, okay, the recipe's there. Now you just got to go out and get the ingredients and cook it up.
Yeah. So we talked about your coupe that you have now and your Spider. Have you had any other Mitsubishis other than those two?
Nope, just those two. Yeah, just the 2 3Gs.
Anything that you plan to pick up in the future or anything, like going an Evo route instead of the 3G eventually? You think you would pick up a Evo as a daily or something like that, or as a fun car?
No. I've thought about getting another project, but this project has always been there, so I don't think I could put in any passion into another project. Yeah. I really want to the car. Like, I have to wait until, like, my thing is, like, I wait until I find deals. Like, I don't just go and hop on the first one.
Yeah.
I really want a classic car. Brandon's dad, has a lot of classic cars, like old Ford trucks, Studebakers, and I really want to find one, but they're so expensive. All these old people are like, well, we got to offload all these cars, so I'm going to make my retirement funds or something. I like 3Gs. I like Mitsubishi, but this car's won it for me, and then I got my truck.
Yeah.
So I'd probably never daily an Evo, because as soon as I get an Evo and the platform itself is supported, I'm just going to start putting money into it. So that's what I'm afraid of. I need something that I can't just, go out and buy all these.
It's hard to keep it stock.
I did have my GLI, so I had a 2017 GLI that was pretty amazing. So if I could get another GLI, I might buy another 3G for my mom, just because they're so easy to work on and I got spare parts.
I feel like they used to be so cheap just about this time last year, and now
everybody wants way too much for it.
Yeah, now it's $5,000 for one. The engine's knocking. It's crazy.
Yeah, or the body's not there.
Yeah.
If I find one that's my color, which is a 1 year off color, the Huntington Blue Pearl, if I can find one, my color, I'll get it. Just because it's a 1 year off color, and I've not seen but maybe 2 in my life.
There you go. If you're out there listening and you got a Huntington Blue Pearl 3G, hit Joe up.
Oh, yeah. No ridiculous price tag.
All right, we're going to take a little ad break. This episode of the MitsuTimes podcast is brought to you by ARH Automotive, home of the world's quickest 428 powered car. ARH Automotive is your one-stop shop. They specialize in general maintenance for most vehicles, but they can do everything from oil changes to engine overhauls. Contact them today to book your next appointment in the Tampa, Central Florida region on Facebook at ARH Automotive LLC. All right, Joe. So we talked about it a little bit, but if someone out there, they just bought a 3G and, they're not looking to make another Fast and Furious replica or whatever. They are looking to do a performance-based 3G. What advice would you give them?
I'd say solidify a budget. Not everybody's going to have $20,000 to throw at a car. So think about plan. Like, planning is what your main focus is going to be half the time. So you get a budget going. Hey, I want to spend this much on this car, this much a month. Also, power goals. Power goals, not everybody knows what they want. A power goal doesn't have to be 1,000 horsepower. It doesn't have to be 500 horsepower. It could be 300 to start, and then you work for it, right? So get a budget going, a power goal going. Look at your options. If you have the 4-cylinder, your power goals are going to be nice because you can do it with Evo swap. So start researching. Start looking at other people's builds and, taking what they're putting on the internet, because not everybody's going to tell you your secrets. So start asking questions. And like I said earlier, asking the right questions. Don't ask, the full tutorial on how to do this. Start asking, hey, how did you do this on this specific step? Once you have your plan, you're researching it, figure out what you're going to do first. If the motor itself is going to be your first, pull it all out, get it cleaned, do the maintenance on it. If you're going to be buying parts, make sure when you're buying these parts that they're the right parts, because a lot of the times these people start collecting parts on a big project, then come find out not everything's going to go together the way you want it. So just have a plan, really. I think that's the biggest thing, is planning everything, because people go, well, I'm going to buy, I'm going to Evo swap it. And then they start going out and buying pistons. Well, if you get into your motor and all of a sudden now you need a maintenance bore, those pistons that you bought that are standard size might not be fit, or they're going to have a lot of wall to piston clearance.
Yeah.
So make sure everything is step by step the way you would have. A lot of these things that I'm saying, like not everybody in the 3G community has done, or even in the 4G community, they haven't pieced together a motor. I take inspiration from, hot rod magazines on how to build motors, because it's all the same. It's all pieces of metal thrown together. Just the dimensions are different.
Yeah.
So when they talk about decking the block, if you're going to go to a machine shop, decking the block, making sure everything's centered, making sure everything's where it needs to be, because these motors were mass produced out of, hundreds of thousands of them. The factory didn't get it right every time. So if you're going to build a motor, don't trust that the deck is squared. Don't trust that the heads are not warped after 20 years of heat cycles. So you just want to make sure that everything is correct the first time before you throw anything together. Now, don't get me wrong. There's people out there that are just getting junkyard motors, blowing them up. They're doing budget builds. Their quality is, lacking because they're constantly fixing things. They're constantly getting cheap axles over and over again, and they're going to the track and breaking axles. You can upgrade your axles. Don't go to the extreme where you think you need this, so you're going to do it. Because if it's axles or if it's the drivetrain, if you break it once, you're going to break it again if you put the same parts in there over and over again. So just have a plan, research, take inspiration from outside the platform. When I was doing my wiring harness, not everybody has built a harness for the 3G. So what I did was go out there and watch plenty of videos for how to wire it correctly. I've joined Facebook groups that are dedicated to motorsports wiring. Ask them questions. Hey, what kind of wiring is the best? The lightweight, something that isn't going to break the bank. And then even with the plate, of course, Adam built his plate, then Justin had his plate, but nobody really seen what Justin's plate looked like. But, just going on there and seeing what kind of metal that these shops are out here using when they're building their adapter plates. It's just the small things that you're paying attention to. Being a little OCD isn't bad either. If you take your motor out, clean up the engine bay. Fix anything that's in the engine bay that, might be a problem that you look at and you're like, okay, cool. I wish I would have done that when the motor was out. Now it's a lot harder with the motor in. And taking your time. Really, that's the biggest thing is I've had this car since 2014 and I'm not working on it every day. Sometimes I have had to step away from it for months and just to think. Don't move around so much. That's my biggest problem. I moved around. I've had this car for 1, 2, 3 states now, building it. I've driven it across the United States. And buy quality. Don't buy cheap coilovers. Godspeed is not a good quality coilover. I don't care if one story out of 100 is good.
Those max peating rods you see on Facebook, they're only $180.
Yeah, like if you're going to do it right, I don't care if you are, not making $100,000 a year. Like I don't make $100,000 a year. I just focus on one thing and I save up. Hell, even my last V2 coilovers, I put in a sponsorship for them. Boom, that's discounted off. It's not 100%, but it's discounted off. Companies have stuff like that. Use it. Use these advantages to save up a little bit here and there.
If you're listening, you have a 3G and you're looking to take it to the track and you feel like you got to jump platforms, just like Joe said, do your research, take your time, do it right. We want to see some more 3Gs on the list. We want to see Joe get into the 9s or Justin get into the 9s, get some parts out there where people are like, all right, well, I'm going to start supporting the 3G guys. They're really pushing their platform. There's not going to be any new parts if we're not pushing the platform, if we're all making Fast and Furious replicas.
Exactly. These companies really want money, and that's all they care about. So people just need to be able to spend money. Like the carbon fiber dashes that just came out.
Yeah.
The adapter plates that are coming out. These companies just want money. One-off parts is cool and all, but it's expensive.
I think it's awesome that Carbonetics has really stepped up and said, hey, we're going to make a 3G dash that's, going to last. If you're willing to pay more to have the carbon fiber version, you're going to have a piece of art in your car that you get to look at every day.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, cure all. You don't have to worry about ever replacing that dash or the dash falling apart like your factory 3G dash. Shout out to those guys for really hooking it up. Hopefully they get some more orders. We get the price down. That way more people have this as an option.
I definitely really want one because they're nice.
And if you're out there listening, I've seen all the comments when I posted that Carbonetics dash. Quality ain't cheap. I'm sure Joe will tell you that before anybody else.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, my fuel cell in the back cost about 3 times what I paid for the car back in 2014. I just did go out and buy an eBay aluminum tank. And then my rear subframe just cost me a lot because, Paul makes amazing subframes for the 2G. Speaking of, he's going to be doing non-all-wheel drive 2G version of his tube subframe. Actually the same as a 3G. So if you want a lighter rear end, or even a nicer one, because it's pretty nice. Look out for that. So I'm waiting for pictures and stuff so I can start promoting that as well.
So if somebody wants to come out and see your car this year, what events do you plan to attend so far?
So IFO is going to be here in St. Louis in April and in September. I'm hopefully going to both of those. I haven't really looked into any more big events that are out here. And of course, I'm in the military, so I can't just go, across state. I really want to make it to the shootout one year.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Even if I'm just, going down the track at a leisure pace, I really want to make it there because that's, I think, when a lot of these 2Gs and these GTRs, they're going to look at my car and go, holy crap.
Yeah.
Okay. Because not everybody, is on Facebook in these 3G groups, and I try to get into these 2G groups sometimes, and sometimes they don't like my car because they're like, well, it's a 3G. And I'm like, well, yeah, but it's got DSM parts.
The respect for the platform will go up a lot. Just seeing some guys at the shootout, seeing some guys at the track, it would help out a lot.
For sure. Start getting some solid numbers. And then they have like Wacky Wednesdays here. So if you're in St. Louis or hell, even if you're in St. Louis and you want to come check out the car, I'm not afraid to show you my car. Come over to my house or what have you and check out the car, ask me questions. I got plenty of parking over here, so come out and make a little meet out of it.
We talked a little bit about Justin's car. He's currently number 1 with the 1027, excuse me. When will there be a new number 1, or when will Justin reset the record? What's going to happen? Which one of those is going to happen, you think?
So hopefully I hold the record once. Me and Alex have already talked about it. If he makes the record, or if we both beat Justin, he has an auto, I have a 5-speed. So we're going to kind of just be like, hey, you're the fastest auto, I'm the fastest 5-speed. So we're really trying to get a new number 1, hopefully this year. I know he's up north. The snow kind of impacts the season. I was in Virginia, so I didn't get to the track all that often. But now I'm right here, and Gateway's, right there, and it's open a lot for testing too. So hopefully by the end of the year, there's a new number 1. Hopefully before Justin, because like I said, Justin's car I think it's going to definitely be exceeding the 9s, and I'm pretty sure it's probably making 8s sooner or later.
Oh, wow. So, I'm going to have to look this build up. I'm not familiar with it.
Oh, yeah. So he took his silver car, and I don't know if that's the motor that he's going to be running, but it's going to have a big turbo. It's rear, or it's I believe he's going all-wheel drive, or I think he's going to rear-wheel drive. But he's got a big old, I want to say 9-inch rear end in it, custom-built subframe.
Oh, wow.
The whole inside has been reworked, and yeah, it's crazy. But, shout out to him for continuing. I know for the longest time we thought he was gone out of the 3G platform. Yeah, hopefully I can get my car up and running and beat him at least this time. But, like I said, I think it's more pro mod than anything, so.
Might be pushing the limits there.
It might be pushing the limits. Like, he might be on, the top list, but as far as 3Gs, I think he's cutting.
Yeah, a lot of people ask me why I don't put the Jet Racing Pro Mod on the 3G list. Yeah. And I've asked those guys multiple times how many parts from a 3G are actually on that car, and he said that they have nothing in common.
Yeah, just a look.
So, yeah, if you're listening, you're wondering why the Jet Racing 6.2 quarter-mile car at 225 isn't on the 3G list. That's why. It's not a 3G, as much as we all want it to be.
But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what he does. Like I said, I want to be in the 10s because, that's something that not everybody's, hey, I bring 10 in a quarter mile.
And, big shout out to Sport Compact Warehouse. If you're looking for parts, definitely hit them up. But when those guys, they hit me up and they said they wanted to sponsor the 3G list. At first I was like, why would you be interested in this category? There's probably going to be maybe one update per year, maybe two. Those guys, I mean, they're out there. They're watching on Facebook. They're in the community. We just maybe don't know about them as much, but they talked about your car. They talked about Alex's car. They talked about Justin's car. And they said those guys are going to be quick. They're going to be setting a new number one. And, we want to be part of that when it happens. And I think that's killer. That somebody has a company like that they're really keeping an eye on what's really going on.
Oh, yeah. That's all we can ask for is big companies helping us out because not everybody has the means to just drop money on top of a car. So.
Especially for R&D, custom parts. I mean, as well as anyone, that gets expensive fast.
Oh, yeah, it does. One-off parts are expensive. I've messed around in CAD, and a lot of the times everybody's like, oh, well, you should, mass produce the adapter plate or the wiring harness. And I'm just like, I'm one person. Like, this is not what I do as a job. I don't have a industry background. Like, I'm just some guy that watches YouTube videos and builds a car. So, I mean, I'm an electrician, so some things are easier when it comes to the electrical part. I was like, but if it wasn't for Brandon teaching me how to build a motor, I probably wouldn't even know how to build a motor. Like, I wouldn't know to worry about, water piston clearance or fine top dead center. Or, hell, like I said, when I first bought the car, I was afraid to take the valve cover off and paint it because, I thought taking it off would be ruining something.
So is there anybody out there that you want to give a shout out to that's really had your back through this whole build, or, some sponsors or anything that you got to make sure they get the recognition?
So, of course, D2 helped sponsor me. They gave me a good discount on my coilovers, my last coilovers. Limitless in Virginia, they're not really around anymore, but, shout out to them. They definitely, took my vision of the turbo kit and kind of just put it together. Shout out to all the companies that are continuing to produce 3G parts. I know I might not have them all because sometimes my car doesn't, have a lot of 3G things that I can put on there. Body kit wise, I can, but a lot of the engine parts and stuff like that, I can't really use anymore. Shout out to MBR for tuning my car. Definitely shout out to Brandon McCauley. I've been away from Washington for the longest time, but we continue to talk. I've run ideas past him. He runs ideas past me. I mean, he's probably been one of my biggest supporters, and, vice versa, me, him. A lot of people look up to both of our cars. So when people say, oh, well, you got the nicest 3G and, whatever, I just point them to him because nice, could be taken a different way, but he definitely has a work of art on his car, and, he doesn't do the social media stuff like I do. So I kind of just try to throw him out there every once in a while, post pictures of his car. Shout out to Alex. I talk to him a lot as well. And, Steven. Yeah, just really our small group in the 3G community that has been here for quite a long time. Shout out to us for keeping the platform moving forward. 22 years after the first original 3G came out. It's not dead 100%, but we're definitely trying to bring it into the light because 2Gs are getting older. So
yeah,
all these Bishi fans definitely need something to occupy their time. Nobody wants to go and spend $9,000 on a GSX just to turn around and spend $10,000 fixing it up and making it run right.
All right, Joe. I appreciate you coming on, man. I know you're a busy man working out there recruiting in St. Louis. So huge thank you to coming on here and sharing your knowledge about the platform. I hope that the 3G guys out there are inspired. I hope to see some more 3Gs on the list. I want to get to at least 50 by the end of the year.
For sure. And I mean, even if you're just taking your stock car out there, trust me, you'd be surprised what a stock car can do.
Yeah. And, a lot of people, I know you have your car on there when it was NA. A lot of people really are scared to take their stock car to the track, but it's a great place to know your starting point. When Joe does get into the 9s, he's going to be able to look back and go, wow, what an improvement. You could do the same thing. You could even, every time you upgrade one part, take it to the track, see if it's got you any better, if it's got you any worse. I appreciate it, Joe. You're a huge pillar in the 3G community, and I'm glad that all those guys got your back, and I do too.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the MitsuTimes podcast. Check out our Instagram and Facebook for daily updates. Get added to our list by going to MitsuTimes.org and clicking Submit a Slip. Thank you to all of our sponsors.